We were just a bunch of nerdy kids who ignored the haters. We took their ridicule and we built on it. And when some of us gave up, well, we built on that too. Built resilience, built on a mission to make things a little better every day until the users came. Then the haters were VCs who scoffed at our audacity. This just isn't the way things are done. But we kept building. Users turned into teams, turned into companies, running their entire businesses on our apps. Then the software giants came after us. We weren't proven, we weren't fully featured, our radical cloud model wasn't secure. But we built on. And today, as companies adopt the cloud to move faster, teams are finding themselves slowed down by each other's efforts. The skeptics are claiming we'll never develop innovation at scale. But now, DevOps have come to the cloud, ushering in a new era of transformation. Companies can release on demand across hundreds of environments, innovating faster with fewer conflicts and fewer disruptions. There will always be challenges. There will always be naysayers. And we'll build on.
Goes with another ID, then you get a job. So add this to your career or enhance what you're already doing by learning data flows, and that's what we're going to show you today. Well, hello everybody. Can you see the other side of the slide with the sorry, a little technical difficulty. I see the people in the virtual meeting on the side, but you don't see that, right?
No. I see you and Anthony together in a Dreamforce book somewhere.
I can build awesome data flows, but sometimes I can't get a virtual meeting going. So I want to say to everybody who's on here once again, thank you for being here. Okay, as many of you know, I don't give up my content in my brain very easy. I'm very visual. I'm not a, I'm not a words person. I'm a think in my head, see it in my head, and do things. I am an Goldilocks. I've been working with Salesforce since 2001. I started as an admin, but I always had a love for data, anything, building data marts or using demand tools, anything analytics, anything to do with that data, clean the data, right? And so, during your career as an admin, you always have to level up. And people have heard me say this before, you can always be an admin where you can, but you can't, right? You can't take the admin out of you, but you have to level up your career. At some point, you have to progress. So back in 2014, as much as I love Salesforce reporting and Salesforce dashboards, when Wave came out, which was Einstein Analytics in the beginning, I thought, oh man, I'm going to jump right on this. This is going to be great. And so some of you in the audience can probably relate to this picture. The first time that I logged into Wave and I saw that it didn't have a UI and all you had to do was code, I was like, where's the Rosetta Stone? Like, I have never been a dev in my whole entire life. There is absolutely no way I can do this. It's funny, I understand what that means now that's on the end, but back in 2014, I didn't. So many of you probably in the audience who are newer to Einstein Analytics, when you log into certain parts of it, you're probably like, oh my God, this is way out of my realm of what I know how to do. Well, I can tell you that if I can do it, and I'm the old school, longtime OG admin, right? You can do it too. This is me today. So I stuck with it. A UI came out for Einstein Analytics back in 2017. And I just, applied myself. I said, I'm going to learn this. And there's way more resources now than there were in 2017. There was only a handful of us doing it. But as you can see behind me, I've aged a little bit in the slide, there is a giant data flow. What we're going to work with today. When I first started working with data flows, I couldn't understand at all how they went together. The data didn't look how I expected. I cried. I had a client, I was in consulting, I had a big project. I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I want everybody here to be kind to themselves. It's just like driving. The first time you get in the car, you're like, oh my gosh, what does all this stuff do? I'm driving too fast, I'm driving too slow, I'm hitting the brakes too much. If you stick with it, it becomes easier and easier. And if you love data, you will absolutely love working with data flows. I have the best job. I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning last night working because I wanted to. Saintani can, she can definitely vouch for that. I've never had a job that I would have stayed up all night working because it's fun, and now I have one. So here's Saintani's story.
Well, I come from a background of civil engineering, and then I was in the field of environment impact assessments, data again, but much, much smaller amount of data, 100 or 1,000 rows. And then
Oh, I was just a civil engineer, right? Like no big deal.
then one fine day, I thought that there was nowhere else I could go in my career. I was at the topmost part of it. I needed something new to do. So, and I get these feelings every now and then, this is now boring. I need something new to do. So I started hunting for more education and things. And then I found New York University started a course called Urban Science and Analytics. So basically informatics based on urban science. Took that course for a year, and after I graduated, it was all data from doing hundreds of rows. I landed up doing millions of rows because unlike most universities, our course was mostly, you have to use all public data, which runs into millions of rows. And you have to go to hackathons that use the New York City taxi data, which is 173 million rows. So you get the point that is when I realized that this is what I want to do in my life, that data is where I want to go, and I need to understand things better, and this is what I want to go.
So she was not an admin. I just want to say, you weren't an admin like us. You just stepped right into Einstein Analytics.
Yes, I have never heard of Salesforce till I joined my current company, Gobi. So I am pretty new to Salesforce in that sense. I have known Salesforce for 3 years, and since Jennifer is saying anyone can do this, yes. My first thing to do in the company, our CEO had given me a week to find the biggest outliers in our platform, which at that point of time was 60 million rows. And in 3 years, it has crossed 150 million rows as of today. So that was my first job. And he had given me 7 days to figure it out with a completely new system, which no one knew at that point of time. So to be honest, I'm grateful that I have something that I'm enjoying myself doing.
I'm listening to your story and not doing the slides here, but this is her today. So she went from being, you know, like I said, a civil engineer, but not knowing Salesforce, but worked with data, and then jumped right into Einstein Analytics. Me, the 18-year admin, jumped right into Einstein Analytics. So it means everybody in between can do it.
Anyone can join in.
And if you think I'm good, she's better. Yeah, so this is just so you guys know that we're normal people. We're not anything. I don't have the college background. I actually went to art school, and then Sanitani has major school behind her. So, you know, if you're a data person, you're a data person. There's no barriers here except yourself. Okay, so for those of you who are in the audience, I was going to steal Salesforce's slides, and then I decided we're going to go with ours because we're talking, you know, to our own industry peeps here. But if you're already working with Salesforce and you know how to work with reports and custom report types, if you understand object structure, you know, fields, formula fields, and relationships, you know, when you have accounts and they make all the related lists under it. Or if you use the schema builder and you understand which IDs map to which objects, and, you know, it's a lot like these three things inside Native Salesforce when you do work with data architecture inside of Einstein Analytics. So,
also, people who don't know about Schema Builder, go into your setup and please check out Schema Builder. That is what will be extremely important whenever you are doing data flows.
yes.
Or even looking for relations between other things, not just in Einstein Analytics, but even in Salesforce. That should be your baby.
Yes. So if you understand how that works, like I look at that picture and I completely understand, oh, that's everything in my org, right? In the schema builder, and the lines are how they connect just by IDs, right? It's simple, but to a lot of people that's hard. So if you're geared towards being able to do that, you can work with data flows. And this is where those skills translate. So inside of Einstein Analytics, if you've never, and I put this in here because there may be some people who've never been in Einstein Analytics, right? So if you do go in there and you've never been in there before, there's a data manager with data flows and recipes. And then there's, we have the extract or the replication, you'll go in there, but that's where it pulls the objects for you to put together. And that's the middle slide. And then you build the data flows and you connect them. And you can even make new fields without touching your native Salesforce. So that's one of the big benefits about working with data and Einstein Analytics is you don't have to hit your roll-up field limit. You can make 1,000 roll-up fields and it's perfectly fine. Or you can, put two different fields together that weren't together inside Salesforce, or you can do formulas and you can calculate. So there's a lot more flexibility without ever damaging your native Salesforce data. So when you're making analytics and you need new calculations that you don't have in Salesforce, no problem. So I know to some of you, you're like, oh yeah, all the roll-up fields, right? Like that would be beautiful. And that's what we're going to show you. Okay, so we're going to go into this area today, but I wanted to put this here so that those of you who think you need a Rosetta Stone, like I used to use this, there's Analytics Studio where you build the dashboards. There's the Data Manager where you do the data architecture. There's optional code. And so I want everybody to know you don't have to use code to be able to use Einstein Analytics. But if you do, this is where you can use code. And in the future, the UI is going to get even easier. So we can't say a whole lot about that yet, but what we're going to show you today is going to get even easier in the next year. Okay, data architecture. Data architecture is what we do. And so this is the same slide as like the last one, but a cleaner picture of what's coming up. So we have data sets, and this is where you find them. You have your data flows, and this is where you find them. And then you have recipes, and this is where you find them. And we included this slide because those of you that are new might need to know when you do go into Einstein Analytics, where are these areas? Because it's not always apparent when you get into something for the first time, like the car, you know where the steering wheel is, but which pedal is the brakes or the gas. So I want you guys to keep this slide afterwards. So when you need to go to each area, this is the 3 areas that you will work in. All right, let's build a data flow. Okay, I wish I could see everybody in the audience right now and we hear a little clap. This is what is hard for a lot of people, right? And so when I started, I didn't have any resources, right? I just learned it on my own. So when I was putting these slides together, and Saintani helps me a lot, with the wording and whatnot, but I was taking on my head, what was missing back when I started? Like what did I need to know that people didn't tell me? And so that's what I'm going to put into the slides that are coming up. But for everybody here, there's a link down below. If you don't want to build this data flow that we're going to show you, you can take this JSON file and you can load it into the data manager yourself. And that way you have a template to work with. I wish somebody would have given me a template back when we started.
But I would suggest that you try doing it yourself. If you cannot or you don't understand, then maybe do a comparison between what you built and what Jennifer is showing on the screen, and then see what is the difference so that you understand better where you are going wrong or where you can improve yourself.
Yeah, so the templates, I used to watch Peter Lyon's videos and I'd have to pause it and be like, where did he click? So I even put the little icon where the star is. So if you're in a data flow and you don't know how to put the JSON in there, you just push that button, the one that's for the upload, and you can put that file in there and it'll make the data flow for you. And if anybody gets stuck, you can find either one of us afterwards and we'll help you with that. And then there's of course the community. Lots of other people can help you too, but we're happy to follow up with anybody who wants to do this after. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to join 2 objects together. We're going to do a roll up just to count how many opportunities go with accounts. And then we are going to make a data set out of that. And that's all these little pictures right here do. You can't see my finger. I'm pointing at the screen while I'm doing this, but that's all this does. It seems complicated, but it's really, really easy. Here's your other link. I thought about this last night. I was like, well, you might not want to do this in your production org, right? So here's the link for a free Einstein Analytics org. It's on the next release. So it's ahead of the curve. So when you go to put that JSON in, if you don't want to put it into your production, you can put it into a dev org. I made it to go into a dev org. So this is the link to sign up for the free dev org with Einstein Analytics to put your JSON new data flow into.
Also, a good practice for those of you who are already using data flows or who are going to do it in future, never ever try editing your data sets or data flows directly in production, because you might need to run it every few hours or every sub-hour. And if it crashes the whole system. So never ever try doing that. Do it in Sandbox, figure it out that it's working. None of your compute expressions or computer relatives are failing. The nodes are actually there, and then recreate
And I'm
it.
sure there's people in the audience who are like, compute relative, what? Like, well,
Yes, we're going to come to that.
that comes. Yeah. And so,
when you're joining two nodes, ensure that they actually join and you don't get an error that, oh, the data flow ran with a warning that we didn't find a key to join on.
yeah.
So
So
don't run into those issues.
I like to use the dev org a lot. I'll put dummy data in the dev org and play with it to learn how things work in the data flow and then go do it in production. But one of the unfortunate things about Einstein Analytics is it doesn't give you like a practice area. So we have to find creative ways to practice. Now this slide is probably the most important slide that you're going to see in this whole presentation. You're probably like, what? Flat data? For those of you on the call that understand flat data, you're probably giggling right now, right? But what we see here is Salesforce is a relationship database, like I was talking about, like an object with other objects underneath it. And you know how they tell you when you're a Salesforce admin, don't put 5,000 fields on the page and make it a flat page. You don't want every single piece of data on the same page. Einstein Analytics works where they want every single field on the same page. So the first time that you use Einstein Analytics, it's not going to work like you have in Salesforce when you put together your reports and dashboards. And I wish somebody would have told me that the first time, because the first time I ever made a data flow, I couldn't understand why when I joined two objects together, it didn't show me the with and without. Well, it's flat data all in one row, so it's not going to show you anything that's not there, right? It's everything that's there. Null is null is null. So I'm not going to get into like the big description about this, but the way that I will tell you visually to me, it works is like a long train. And every single one of those train cars is a field that you're putting in. So when you make a data flow, you're picking one field, one field, one field, one field, and it makes a train. And then when you run that data flow, that row goes through there. And this may seem like a lot until you go in there and work with it. And then you're going to be like, oh, I get the train car concept. And I like Sayantani's visual concept too, which is the apartment building, if you want to tell them that.
Sure. Before that, I just saw in a chat someone asking that if this is a CSV file. Not technically, but kind of. So what we are doing is we are taking the data which exists in a relational database or a flat file, which is a CSV or somewhere else, and we are joining them together to form columns constantly. So you don't have to jump from, say, leads to opportunities to those kind of things. You don't have to do that. One single column will show you everything else. And once Jennifer shows you how the data flow is created and what you get out of it at the end, you'll understand that much better. How many column limits? There are no limits in the columns. And the number of, if you have Einstein Analytics Plus, the total limit for the number of rows, not per data flow, but per in all, is right now 10 billion. Also, there is no limit but for the data set how many rows you can have. So you're fine with doing 200 million rows and all.
This is why it's like a data person's dream, right?
Yep. You can do whatever you want. Secondly, it's extremely fast. Once you make any data flat, you understand that it becomes extremely fast, right? It doesn't have to find relations anymore. So what it does is it goes and just picks up the fields and the columns and just creates a beautiful visualization for you and your clients or internal users. Okay, so going back to the apartment building, my idea of a flat data comes from an apartment building. As I said, I'm a civil engineer by profession at some point of time in life. And in Gobi, we are a commercial real estate invoice management company. So this is what comes to my mind naturally. In an apartment building, you have floors. Each floor then has many units. Each unit has different rooms, and each room has different equipments and furnitures and gadgets and those kind of things, right? Imagine this in a relational database where each of these things is an object. Now your apartment is one object. Then you go to the floors, they are one object. Each floor has units, which is another object. Each unit has different furnitures and equipments and gadgets, which are again another object. So when you join them together, it becomes a flat data. Now you get to see that, oh, this apartment has these many floors and these many units, these many furnitures, and so on and so forth. So it becomes a complete flat data for you then.
Yeah, and the reason that we put this in here, I know some of you are like, just get to the meat of this, man, I want to build a data flow, right? But there's a reason we put this in here, because you have to understand that it's not going to work the way that you expect it to work in Salesforce, right? Which is a shock to a lot of people. A lot of people quit there. But once you understand that flat data, it runs a lot more data through it, and it's a lot more flexible. You will love it. So with that,
Jennifer, before you go ahead, let me answer two questions which are there. The first one is Chandana is asking about interested in getting started with Einstein Analytics realistic timeline. We are going to show you how to do this online with all the resources that are available, so that you can go ahead, start, and please join the community. You'll find a lot of help there.
We have a ton of resource slides at the end
of this. We will show you all. And is there any file size limit from Hitesh? File size limit exists for connectors, which we are not presenting here, but connectors are when you have, say, Google BigQuery, when you have Heroku, when you have MuleSoft, those are called connectors, or AWS S3, AWS MySQL, MS SQL servers, those are called connectors.
Isn't she smart? Listen to her.
When you have connectors, that's when there is a file size limit. For Heroku, because we use Heroku, I know that a little more. There is a file size limit of 50 million rows. And with that, there is a file size limit of how much you can upload. Sorry, 100 million rows and 50 GB. That's the limit. And if you're getting data from Salesforce, there's no limit.
Okay, so this slide here, when everybody goes home and they want to build their own data flow and we're not here anymore, these are the instructions. And so there's a method to our madness here that I created these slides and then had Sayantani sign off on them. That because I tend to be very visual, I'm not a wordy person, right? So I like to show and not tell, but then I thought some of you might be, you need instructions to learn. And so these are the instructions. Find the data manager, you create a new data flow, name it. I have slides for what a digest node and all these nodes are in the next slide, but it tells you right through here how to build it. And then you have the JSON file to load if you want to go ahead and do this, the easy way. I don't want to build it. I just want you to show me what it looks like, and then I'll build it after I see it. So refer to this afterwards, but here we go. We're going to see how this goes here. Okay, create a new data flow. I started thinking about it. You might not know where these pieces are, but the data manager. Data flows and recipes. This might not always stay the same as new releases come out. So as of right now, this is what it's named. And then we go to a button called Create Data Flow. And then we name it. And I'm going to do it here for you in a second. But what I wish somebody had told me back then, data flows are not data sets. Data flows are the holder or the conduit, so you can make as many data sets as you want inside one data flow, and then you run it, and you can even schedule it. There are limitations of how many of these you can make. Don't do like what I did, where I made like 50 different data flows the first time I was in here and tried to schedule them all, and then I ran out because back then the limit was really, really low. But you don't understand when you first get in there, what is the difference between a data flow and a data set, and what does a data flow do? And data flow doesn't sound like a folder, right? So these are the instructions to make this yourself. Now I'm going to go into my org here.
Jennifer, there's a question which you might want to take. What is the data flow?
So data flow, I'm in the data manager right now. That's what you guys see here. So if I click on data flows and recipes, I'm going to click on create a data flow. let's just name this one test. You're going to see my big hands if you're seeing the screen here. The data flow is the folder that runs your data sets. That's all it is. You name it what you name it, and then you put your configurations for data sets inside of it. It's nothing more than that. The data sets are made up of nodes. You can see my screen here, right? When we first make a folder, there's nothing in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and I have to go back and forth between the slides and my screen here, so bear with me. This is a little bit, trying to keep it in presentation mode for you and go back to my screen. So we're going to make 2 digest nodes. A digest is basically taking your object out of Salesforce and putting it into the data flow. Or you can actually use external files, but we're not going to go into that right now. We're just going to talk about taking our native Salesforce objects and working with them. I gave you this slide so that afterwards you can do this yourself, but I'm going to do this real quick for you. And bear with me as I go back and forth. So you're going to see all these buttons, and the first time you're in here, you're like, what is this? There's a satellite, there's Tetris, you know, we don't know what all these are. And Sayantani worked with these in what she does because she's was a civil engineer, right? But me, no, I've never seen
we have 5
these
minutes
before.
left, so you might need to hurry up.
Oh, yeah, okay, so let's go back and do this a different way. Oh, it's because we're answering questions, that's right. Okay. I'm not going to do the demo, and we're not going to answer any more questions. Since we have 5 minutes, I'm going to give you these slides and you're going to have fun trying to do these by yourself. But here we go. Recap of the digest nodes. So we're going to make 2 nodes, which are 2 objects. And then we're going to do an augment, which is the join that joins the 2 together. And then we're going to do a ComputeExpression, which is going to be your rollout field. It's going to count how many of these opportunities join with the accounts. And then we're going to have a register node. And once we register, that makes our data set. So a register just equals making the data set. I even put the buttons on here for you to be able to know what to click on to make this. And then finding the data set. This is where you find it. Over here in the Analytics Studio under that name. And that's an example of what it will look like when you're done. And then this is what it's going to look like in a year. So if you learn it now, this is what you have to look forward to. And here's your resources. Data Tribe Coffee, we're having this next week. We have these several times a month. So anybody that works with Einstein Analytics is welcome to join our calls and talk with industry people. You can bring questions, you can present. We're a very close group. And then Chicago, because of the pandemic, is now virtual. So Sayantani hosts the Chicago meetups for Einstein Analytics. We're having one real soon, this coming week. So everybody here is welcome to join, and we can continue the discussion about our presentation here.
And we are not going to do data flows, but those who are interested in learning more about dashboards, you are more than welcome to join. We will learn about data blending, which will be taken by Jeff Rothman. And then we are going to, some of you I know are from Chicago here and have attended these before. So you know we were doing formulas last time. We are going to continue doing formulas, but this time we are going to take it a step up and do windowing functions. So 2 very cool things coming up.
If you want to learn more about what's coming up in the future, you can go to this link right here. The product manager for data flows will, he's got a great blog with snippets of what we have coming, even adding SQL to it, which is something new for all of us. You can go to Ricky Hovgaard's blog. She has a Getting Started with Data Flows blog that the PM from Salesforce is helping her with. I'm trying to go real fast here, guys. Pete Lyons, MVP Pete Lyons, has some videos on how it's put together. He goes very, very fast, but this is how I learned, so I definitely highly recommend him. The Einstein Analytics Academies are online. That Ziad does those. The link is there to go. You can do his whole entire academy online. There's recorded webinar series. Like, let me go faster and faster. Community resources. This is where you find these in the Trailblazer community. And then we also have the Einstein Analytics learning app, and then the learning map. So this is like everything that I wish I would have had in the beginning that I didn't have. Any sort of question afterwards or wants to try this and get stuck, you can always ping the two of us or go to the community for help. We're a close-knit group, and we're really, really happy to find anybody who thinks that data might be their calling as well. I think we're out of time, or I'd say we could take more questions.
I think you can take a couple more questions. It's just
Okay, so thanks, Ashish. There were two questions I found. One was, what is a data flow? And the other one was, what is a data set? From the same person, Icelandic gal. I definitely don't know your name, so that's what I'm going to call you. So what is a data flow? When you join different kinds of objects or different kinds of, what should I say, different kinds of CSV files, anything that is different and does not form one. So imagine an Excel sheet. In an Excel sheet, you have different kinds of tabs, right? Each sheet, imagine, is an object. Now you want to join all of those 10 sheets together. How do you do it? You use a data flow. In Excel, you use VLOOKUP and other kinds of formulas to come up with one single massive sheet. The same concept goes over into Einstein Analytics, and we call it data flow. We call it recipe. The difference between a data flow and a recipe is recipe shows you the data behind the scene when you open it. Data flow doesn't. So when you are doing a data flow, you need to know what exists behind the scene beforehand. But when you are looking at a recipe, which is going to be data prep very soon, you don't need to know what is behind the scene because it shows you live when you are joining things. Is the data set getting joined right, or it is not? Is your formula working or not? The reason we use data flow more is it's far more complex and allows you to do things that a recipe doesn't yet. That's why we use more of data flows than recipes. And it lets you name your nodes, it lets you name your relationships, which ideally, if you're working with data flows, please, please, please name them good and not something like node 1, node 2. No, please name it right, because so that when you go back on a later—
That's a whole nother session. I thought we had 5 minutes left. Are we still on the regular schedule, or are we on a new schedule?
Yes, on a new schedule. So,
oh, I thought you said we have 5. Oh, so we have time? I feel really bad for the audience because it's like I had to go through those slides so fast, right?
No, I think we are going over the time. We just have a few minutes margin, so we are going into that.
I love doing presentations like this where it's like it's over. No, it's not.
So, and cutting it short, dataset is the endpoint where you register your final node. That's what a dataset comes. That's dataset is the flat file that Jennifer was talking about before. That is what we use in creating our dashboards and lenses and everything.
Yeah, I agree with her. She talks so much more technical. I'm more like, it's the folder that holds it, right? That's what I love about Saitani. She can give you the actual technical explanation of anything here. But this kind of shows you the differences in people who can work with data flows, right? That you can pick somebody like me, who's the regular Salesforce admin, right? I don't know all the data scientist jargon. And then you can take somebody like Saitani who does know, and we meet in the middle, right? We both love data. If we have a little bit more time, then I'll go ahead and show everybody. And just interrupt me because I get into my data. Just interrupt me if we are not, if we need to go. So the first time that you're building, you're inside a data flow and you're going to build a data set, you're going to pull a Salesforce object. So we're just going to call this one accounts. I named the data flows in that JSON file, like all the nodes have beautiful names in there, so you'll understand. But for quick purposes, we're just going to pull accounts and call it accounts. And we're just going to select the ID. Everybody on this call can do this part. This is easy. We're going to do the ID and the name, right? The account name, the account ID. Boom, easy. Now, for those of you who code, it looks like this, but I stay out of there. I can actually do this now, but no, I like visual things. I like to make it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pull opportunities. They'll come up here. See, does this look hard? It's really fun. Right, San Antonio, you have a 9-hour data flow.
I still have.
ID and name. I'm going to just do a really quick join for you, nothing fancy. So if we wanted to hook our accounts to our opportunities and we want to make a data set, like we just want to make a set of data that we can build a dashboard on that contains accounts and opportunities, you have to decide, do you want opportunities with accounts or accounts with opportunities? So in this case, we're going to say accounts with opportunities. That means it's on your left side. In your JSON template that I put in there, you are going to have these named left and right for you. The Tetris icon is augment. This is your join. So we're going to say join account opties, accounts. Key is going to be the ID, just like you would do anywhere else. The relationship is going to be opportunities because we're pulling, it's just like when you have a related list under account, right? So we're going to see opportunities. So let's just call that op, and then we're going to pull ops. And then we're going to look for, oh, guess what? I didn't pull in the account key, didn't I? So we're going to go back to opportunity. This is what you're going to find when you build. We want the account ID. So we're going to go back here and we're going to pull the account ID. And it's going to ask us which fields. So we don't have to choose all the fields, or we can. Let's just go ahead and choose them all for the sake of time. And one account can have many opportunities. So we definitely want to do a multi-value lookup and click save. And then we're going to register it, which makes a data set. So we're going to call this reg counts with ops. It just asks where you're hooking to here. And then the alias is going to actually, the alias and the name are going to be data set. So we're going to just call this accounts with ops data set. I'm going to put the same thing here. We don't have any sharing or security going on because it's my dev word. And boom, that's your first data set. I just did that, what, in 5 minutes? So if I can do that, you guys can too. So over here, we're going to do update our data flow. So if you want to make changes, then you update it while you're making changes. We're building it for the first time and we're going to run it. So run that folder. We're going to go back to the data monitor and watch it process. So data flows here. These are all your folders that hold all of, now I could do more than that in there. I could make a ton of data sets in there. We just made one for the sake of time. So that's our test data flow. So we're going to go back to the monitor. It's running. While that runs, if you want to find your data sets, you go up here, Analytics Studio. This is your menu, this little gear that's up here. So we're going to go back to Analytics Studio. This shows that we work on this all the time, right? Because I can do this like driving. But the first time you do it, it seems difficult. So, you know, I have some other data sets in here. Here's accounts with opportunities. And you can make dashboards out of them. Now, I didn't do anything fancy, right? We're just doing something simple. Let's do account name. We have one of each, right? Really easy. Okay, let's go back to the data manager and see if we processed. Yes, test one is done. So if we go back over here to Analytics Studio, we'll get out of this play data set. I'm just waiting for somebody to say, your time is up, right? Like, I'm just gonna keep building this until somebody says that.
Oh, we have just 1 minute, so you're almost at the time.
Okay, here's our data set we just made, accounts with opportunity data set. So how cool is this that we can go in here? I'm going to make a compare table. You can make charts, you can make compare table, you can take your data out of here, you can organize it any way that you want, but let's group this by account name. And then we can group it by opportunity name. See? So it lists all the accounts and all the opportunities that are attached to them right there, which is kind of hard to do in regular Salesforce. And the data flow that I gave you has account in there too. So that actually, if you just want to know how many opportunities are on each account, that's in there too. Do we have any more time to take any more questions, or are we cut off? I appreciate everybody hanging with us.
Cut us off now.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And thanks
Yeah.
for giving us extra time.
Yeah, just find us afterwards if you guys have any questions. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jenny and Anthony. Yeah, take care then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
To be continued. Bye-bye.